Frank really thought about these herbal elixir meads as reviving an ancient tradition that had been suppressed. The basically incorporating plant medicine into fermented alcoholic brews is an ancient practice that people have been doing as long as they have been fermenting alcoholic beverages, and basically as an aspect of the Inquisition and this sort of broad campaign against plant medicine and its practitioners. The sort of anti-witchcraft kind of campaigning, that there had been this sort of suppression of this ancient tradition of incorporating different medicinal and psychoactive plants into fermented alcoholic brews. Frank really saw, what he was doing, what we were doing, as an attempt to revive this branch of herbal medicine that had been largely lost. And he was always encouraging people to experiment, to help sort of rebuild the knowledge base of how the action of the plants is altered by the fermentation. So the plants have a certain action if you steep them as a tea. They might have a slightly altered action if you steep them in grain alcohol to make a tincture. They might have a slightly altered action if you just eat them raw. But that if you ferment them through their interaction with the yeasts and any other fermenting organisms that are part of it, that they have some other alteration, which may be very subtle, or it may be more dramatic. But he was always encouraging our students to be part of rebuilding this knowledge base of understanding how the fermentation might alter the action of different herbs. Typically, in the context of our workshop, it was whatever Frank and the students found. We would make an infusion, and people would drink some of it hot as a tea, and then whatever they didn't drink hot, we would allow to cool down, and then we would mix it with honey and use that as the basis for the mead. So in that context, we were very often working with fairly random combinations of things they just happened to stumble upon in the course of plant walks. But I mean, I have a couple of lists that this friend Mark Williams, a friend of Frank's, compiled at these. There's this event in Asheville, North Carolina, twice a year called LEAF, Lake Eden Arts Festival, and over the last few years, at each LEAF festival, there was a mead sharing circle. Late at night, and this growing group of fermenters would, everyone would bring a couple of bottles with them, and then everyone would pass around the bottles and take a little sip. And this guy Mark compiled a list of all of the herbal elixir meads that would show up at this. And just because Frank had so much influence in this, relatively small area of Asheville, North Carolina, every year there were more people who were actively making these medicinal meads. And so, I mean, we're talking 50, different, herbal and fruit combinations. And then, some people, just like in the world of herbal medicine, some people prefer to do simples that are just, like a single herb, and they want to, sort of experience just the purity of that flavor and the effect of that plant. And, other people are more alchemical, and they'll, mix together lots of different herbs, either with the idea of creating some combined action, or just because they're things that are seasonal or available at the same time.
So are the elixirs really like nutritional support, rather than you get ill, you take a particular elixir, or a combination of both?
I think it depends a lot what it is, how concentrated it is. But I mean, if you think about the way most people in our time are preserving their plant medicine is in grain alcohol. And that's something that's only been available for a couple of hundred years. I mean, that's basically the result of an industrial process. And so if you take the same, principle of alcohol being a preservative, the, gentler way to take it into our bodies, and, the more, low-tech and traditional way of preparing it is through fermentation rather than distillation. So, fermenting the alcohol with the plant. I mean, you could just take some beer or wine and, put herbs in it, and, because the alcohol is a solvent for phytochemicals, you'll end up with, flavors and compounds from the plant in the beer or the wine. But, this whole idea is, well, just brew it with the plants, and let those compounds be present in the fermentation. So you could do it as something that would be a gentle tonic or nutritional support or something like that, or you could do it in a way that would be more medicinal. I think it just depends a lot what it is and how concentrated you make it.